So you could definitely spend a lot of money on your setup for spraying finishes. Sometimes that money is really well spent and other times it may not be. In this video, I'm going to show you my tools and process for spraying finish on my projects, where I think it's a good place to invest your hard-earned money and where I think you could do the same thing for a whole lot less. So let's get going, shall we? All right, first things first, I want to talk about what I like to spray with. And anytime I'm spraying finish on my woodworking projects like cabinets or furniture, I'm using an HVLP spray system. HVLP stands for high volume.
Volume!
Yes, the volume.
Low pressure. Anyways, it works by using this turbine to generate a large volume of air that flows through the hose and out that gun. The finish sits in this cup below the gun and is atomized as the air rushes out. This can help you create a much smoother finish, which is the desire when you're doing something like cabinets or furniture or automobiles. The equipment you use is the one part of the finishing process where I really think you need to invest your money wisely and spend accordingly. Now, how much you spend really depends on what type of material you want to spray the most. If you think you might be spraying more clear, thinner finishes like shellacs and lacquer, you might be able to get away with this two-stage unit from Erlex. This is an entry-level hobby HVLP system, and it's going to run you a lot less money. But if you want to do acrylics, latexes, urethanes, you're going to need to step up to something with a little more power, and that's where something like this 5-stage unit from Graco might come in. It can run the full gamut of finishes that you might want to put through it with a lot of controls at the gun for the flow of that material.
It's all about the flow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, next up I want to talk about where I like to spray, and for me, I like spraying in my garage, which is just through this door on the far side of my shop. Now, spraying in there means I don't have to worry about whether it's too hot, too cold, too rainy, too windy, because it's a pretty controlled environment. But I do still have to control two other factors. The first one is off-gassing from the fumes that come from the painting process, and the other one is all the overspray and making sure that I contain that because I don't want fine paint particles all over everything else that I store in my garage. So here's my solution for that.
The first thing I need to do is clear out space to make some room. There's going to be power cords and hoses all around, and I don't want anything that's in the way that can catch or snag those. And in this corner of my garage, I made my own spray booth by attaching lengths of black iron pipe to the joists on the ceiling. This is just regular 3/4 inch black iron pipe that you can get at the home center. Then I bought some heavy-duty painter's canvas and hung them from the pipe using zip ties. I prefer using canvas instead of plastic. Plastic becomes very hard to manage as it starts fluttering all around, especially when the sprayer's running. The canvas is much heavier and it just kind of drapes down and doesn't move. And here's a tip, I like to clip these canvas panels together using regular old binder clips from the office supply store. I also lay some canvas on the floor to catch any falling overspray.
All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is how I like to spray. Now, the method I like to use is spraying vertically with my workpiece hanging in front of me where I can spray all sides of the piece at one time and then set it aside to dry. I find it to be a lot less tiring as well than spraying horizontally with my workpiece sitting on a table or a spinner. Now, I've looked online for different rack systems that you can buy just for this purpose, and they tend to run in the $500 to $600 range. So I sat down and figured out how to make my own rack system out of PVC for about 1/3 of that cost, and I'm going to show you how I did that as well.
I picked up several 10-foot lengths of 1.5 inch PVC pipe and I cut those up. These are going to make up the majority of the frame parts. I also got one 10-foot piece of 1-inch PVC and cut that into 2 parts. I then took one section of 1.5 inch PVC and drilled a hole through it. Drilling round objects can be tricky, but I used an old hand screw to stabilize the pipe and keep it from rolling on me. Then I inserted an eye bolt with a nut and washer at the top. Next I added a second washer and added some thread lock to the bolt and screwed on a second nut. I'm not tightening this down because I want there to be some adjustability. Once the thread lock cures, you can see how this thing spins freely, but I can also tighten this second nut down if I want to stop the bolt from swiveling. Once that was done, I could assemble the first rack, which is going to be the spray rack. First, I used a couple of T-unions to make some feet. Then I added more T's to create a cross brace. This is going to keep everything stable. Next, I added some long vertical pieces. And after moving everything to the floor, I added 2 90-degree elbows. And then I added the final cross brace, which has the eye bolt in it. And that finishes the spray rack. The drying rack starts out the same way with feet and a cross brace. But then I added short vertical pieces, and the cross brace here is made out of 1-inch PVC. That's going to allow me to put normal clothes hangers on the rack. I then moved it to the floor and repeated those steps and made another level with 1-inch cross brace. Now I have 2 places to hang parts to dry, and the top is open-ended, so if I ever wanted to add another level, I could do that.
As far as controlling fumes, I decided a few years back to spray water-based finishes. I really didn't want to subject myself to the fumes from lacquers, polyurethanes, and spar varnishes, so I just decided to eliminate them from my process as much as possible. And not just for my health, but also for the health of my family, because the space right above where I spray happens to be bedrooms. Now I do make one exception to the water-based rule, which is when I spray a primer that is shellac-based. Now I'll go in more detail about why I do that and also show you some of the other finishes that I most commonly spray at the end of the video.
And regardless of what I spray, I always add my old air scrubber to the spray booth and crack the garage door to vent the air outside. This does a really great job of removing any fumes and collecting overspray from the air, which I'll show you in a bit.
Here's an example of a brand new air filter next to one that I just took off my air scrubber after my last job. You can definitely see how much material was collected.
In order to spray vertically, I need to hang my parts. To do this, I drill 2 small holes on one side of the door or drawer front. I then insert these small cup hooks. Then I can hang my parts from a regular clothes hanger just like this. Now I know what you're thinking, why would you drill holes in a perfectly good drawer front? Let me explain.
So if I were to spray the door and drawer fronts on these base cabinets, I would drill the holes on the bottom side. Now that's about 5 inches off the floor. If I were to lay flat on the floor, I don't think I could see those holes. And if I'm spraying these upper cabinets, I'm putting the holes on the top side of the doors. Now the only way I'm seeing those is if I get up there and clean. And even I'm not that clean. And if you don't want to make those holes, no problem, just spray horizontally. But spraying vertically is much more efficient because I can spray all sides of the door at once instead of spraying one side, waiting for it to cure, flipping it over, and spraying the other side.
Okay, when I'm spraying cabinet parts, it all starts with shellac primer. I start by spraying the top and bottom edges. After that, I spray in a vertical pattern across the surface, overlapping my last pass by about half. Then I got the sides, which I really should have done first, but because this is a primer coat, it'll be okay. Next, I flip the piece around and hit the edges again before spraying the other side. Then it's off to the drying rack. I like to keep my drying rack on the opposite side of the booth away from any overspray. Once that dries, I give everything a light sanding with 320 grit sandpaper, just using the weight of my hand, no real pressure here, I'm just knocking down any roughness that I feel. Then I vacuum any of the sanding dust off the panel. For the finish coat, I'm using Sherwin-Williams Emerald Urethane. I start again by spraying the edges, and this time I remember to get all the edges first. Then I spray the first side of the panel. Again, I'm doing this in overlapping strokes. I then get the other side, and everything gets set aside to dry again. Once all that dries, I go back and apply one more coat. Now notice for the second coat that I'm spraying in the opposite direction of the first coat. I find doing this ensures an even coat, especially on the inside edges of the panel. Then I can just touch up any areas I see that still need it with light strokes. And just like that, I'm done.
Alright guys, so when I'm spraying, I like to keep it simple and use mostly water-based finishes, and here are the few that I use the most often. Now if I'm doing whites or pastel colors, I like to go with the Sherwin-Williams Chem Aqua Plus. Maybe my favorite finish of all time. It lays down super smooth, it dries fast, and it cures very hard. I love that product, but like I said, you can do whites and pastels. Now if I'm going to do other brighter or deeper colors, I like to go with the Sherwin-Williams Emerald Urethane. This product, like the Chem Aqua Plus, it looks fantastic, smooth, cures really hard, but the cure time is a lot longer on that product than it is on the Chem Aqua Plus. That's the only downside, but you get a lot more colors that you can spray with. If I'm doing clear coat, I'm always using the High Performance from General Finishes. I'll put this on all of my drawer boxes. If I'm doing a project in a natural wood finish, I'll spray with this. Now the only exception I make to the water-based rule is when I'm priming, and I like to use a shellac-based primer for that. I really like using shellac because it sticks to just about anything. If I am spraying over pre-finished plywood, no problem. Raw wood, no problem. It's a great product for that, but it is alcohol based. Now that's not so bad. Alcohol flashes off really quickly and the fumes aren't nearly as bad as if you're doing a polyurethane or other alkyd based product. All right, everybody, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you feel at least a little more prepared when it comes to the task of spraying your projects. If you found this video valuable, please give me a thumbs up and also leave me a comment if you have any other questions about what was covered in the video. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you guys as part of the team. And also watch these other videos that I've got lined up for you here. I think you would really enjoy those as well. And until next time, have fun in the shop.